Welcome back to Chokitable Media. I hope you have watched episode 1 to 7 of the book Nigeria and its Criminal Justice System that I posted here on my channel, just to let us know and to put us in the bright light of what Dele Farotimi wrote in his book that has caused controversy and led to him being arrested by Mr. Afe Babalola. But it is not good to hear from one side. And that is why we need to balance the argument. I am bringing to you right here a lawyer from the firm, or a lawyer that has worked for Afe Babalola before, that he said in his statement that he was with the firm when the case was going on. So he is right here on Arise Television, invited to come and speak his own truth and what he knows about the case. And I want you to settle down and listen to the defense of Afe Babalola and to put us in the light about what really happened at that period in time. Let's sit down and watch. Don't forget to put your comment at the end of the video. Let me know what you feel. If you feel comfortable, if you feel okay, let me know. And let's start the discussion from there.
Top lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Afe Babalola, sued another lawyer, Dele Farotimi, for defamation at a magistrate court in Ekiti State. Shortly after that, however, Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, brought another case bordering on contravention of the Cybercrimes Act against the same lawyer before another court, all of which stems from Farotimi's book, Nigeria and its Criminal Justice System. What exactly does a case of defamation entail? Where does the burden of proof lie? Where is that thin line between potential persecution and justifiable multiple suits when multiple people claim they are defamed? And is there a role for the Ethics Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association when a lawyer resorts to self-help in telling his own truth after losing a case at the Supreme Court? Well, all of that we now want to bring into our conversation with lawyer Oluwole Aladedoye, senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, let's start, with what your thoughts are on this whole controversy and this whole saga that has been in the news for some days.
Well, let me start by making a disclosure. And the disclosure is that I was with the firm of Afe Babalola for 12 years before I left to set up my own firm. And I was a staff of Afe Babalola at the time this appeal was heard at the Supreme Court. So I'm talking from a position of knowledge of the facts of the appeal. Now, this is a land dispute. It was a land dispute concerning two families in Lagos, the Eletu family and the Ojomu chieftaincy family. It involves a large expanse of land in Lekki Peninsula, spanning 254 hectares. Now, there was no dispute about the size of the land. Indeed, Chief Afe Babalola was not in the matter at the High Court of Lagos State and Court of Appeal. It was when the Eletu family lost at the Court of Appeal that they engaged the firm of Afe Babalola. Now, the firm took over the appeal on behalf of the Eletu family. Chief Rotimi Williams' office handled the case both at the High Court, Court of Appeal, and at the Supreme Court for the Ojomu family. There was no time Dele Farotimi was involved in this appeal at the Supreme Court. Now, the firm of Afe Babalola, like I said, acted for the Eletu family. The appeal was eventually delivered, and the appeal was allowed. In other words, the Supreme Court agreed with the lead counsel from Afe Babalola's chambers, who is Oluwole and the head of Lagos office. And then the appeal was allowed, and then the judgment of the Court of Appeal was set aside. Now, I must place on record that at no time did Chief Afe Babalola appear in person in this appeal. He never appeared all through. It was Mr. Oluwole and that led other lawyers from his office to appear on behalf of the Eletu family. Now, when the judgment was delivered in 2013, it was a unanimous judgment. The 5 members on the panel, agreed and then allowed the appeal. Now, the lead judgment was delivered by my Lord Honorable Justice Akas, now retired. Honorable Justice Akas captured the facts, and then, he first identified that the plots in dispute, was 254 hectares. Now, in his concluding part, there was now a mistake, an accidental mistake. He now referred to the land as 10 hectares. However, if you look at the 4 other judgments that concord with the lead judgment, they captured the size of the plot, 254 hectares. Now, after that, after Chief Afe Babalola office identified this error, they filed an application. In law, you are entitled to file an application to correct a slip. We call it, an accidental slip under the slip rule. They filed an application to correct that error to reflect the size of the land. Now, when the application was filed, the firm of Chief Rotimi-Williams, like I said, handled the appeal on behalf of the Ojomo family all through. Mr. T.E. Williams, SAN, appeared for the Ojomo family in respect of the application. When he appeared, he never disputed the size of the land. But his contention was that the court having delivered his judgment was functions of issue. In other words, the court didn't have the capacity to revisit that judgment. The Supreme Court, the same panel that delivered the judgment, sat on the application for the slip, to correct the accidental slip. And that same panel was unanimous that, look, there was a mistake as to the size. They now corrected the mistake to reflect the 254 hectares instead of the 10 hectares. My Lord Honorable Justice Akas, who wrote the lead judgment and made the mistake of 10 hectares, even agreed that, look, he made a mistake. What he ought to have reflected was 254 hectares. Now, at this stage, Dele Farotimi'S was not involved at all. It was after the judgment. The Eletu family sought to enforce the judgment. Now, like I said to you, the case revolves around the large expanse of land in Lekki Peninsula. At that time, the Ojomo family had sold the land to a lot of people. So third party interest had come in. A lot of estates were on the land. Now, those who own the estate now, approached the Eletu family. It was at that stage Mr. Farotimi came in. Mr. Farotimi represented an estate called French Colony Estate. I repeat again, French Colony Estate. That was Mr. Farotimi's client. And at the end of it all, they opted for settlement with the Eletu family and settled the matter. This was 11 years ago, 2013. We thought that was the end of the matter. Until Mr. Farotimi waited 11 years after 2024 to write a book, just making false allegations, palpably false. Number one, he claimed in that book that he was counsel to the Ojomo family. That is a lie. He was never a counsel to the Ojomo family. He was counsel to French Colony Estate. It was the firm of Chief Rotimi-Williams that represented the Ojomo family. Secondly, he said Chief Afe bribed the Supreme Court justices on that panel. Chief Afe did not appear at any time in that appeal. It was Oluwole SAN, the head of Chief Afe's Lagos office, that appeared all through. Thirdly, Mr. Farotimi, who was not at any time at the Supreme Court, how did he know that Chief Afe bribed anybody? An appeal you were not involved in, you didn't come into the appeal at any stage at the Supreme Court. It was after the judgment of the Supreme Court that the firm of Afe Babalola sought to enforce the judgment in Lagos. That was when he came in to represent French Colony Estate. So how could he have arrived at this conclusion that a panel of the Supreme Court that he never appeared before was bribed? And furthermore, the firm of Chief Rotimi-Williams that represented the Ojomo family has not said anything. It wasn't Mr. Farotimi's client alone, that is French Colony Estate alone, that was affected. There were several other estates that were affected. None of the council had said anything because they ultimately opted for settlement and settled with the Eletu family. So we are all waiting, we are all anxiously waiting for that evidence that he has to show the wild allegations he had made against people in that his book. My own view is that this man is just out to blackmail. And unfortunately, Chief Afe, who is the victim, is now the one being vilified by people who do not have, the facts. So that's why I'm here to put things in proper perspective, to say that, look, what he has published is false. He was not counsel to Ojomo family as he has claimed in that book. It was the firm of Chief Rotimi-Williams that was counsel to Ojomo family. At no time did Mr. Dele Farotimi appear at the Supreme Court in that case. He did not appear at the Supreme Court at all. In fact, the case in question for lawyers is the case of Badamasi versus Akinloye. It is reported in 2013, 15 Nigeria Weekly Law Report, part 1378, page 455. If one looks at that report, you won't find Mr. Dele Farotimi's name at all for any of the parties. And then the subsequent application that was granted by the Supreme Court was granted by this same panel, the same panel that had the main appeal. And this was their ruling was delivered on the 18th day of March 2014. And then Mr. Farotimi too was not didn't represent any of the parties. It was Mr. T.E. Williams SAN that represented the Ojomu family in that case. And then the question to ask, why did Mr. Farotimi wait for 11 years to write a book? If indeed he had evidence that the Supreme Court justices had been compromised, in law, there's a body called the National Judicial Council. That is where petitions ought to have been directed against any misconduct. You know, if there's any complaint of misconduct against any judicial officer, he didn't write any petition. If there's a misconduct against a lawyer, he ought to have gone before a body called Legal Practitioner Tribunal Committee. He didn't write any petition. He just woke up 11 years after the judgment and after all the justices on that panel had retired. He waited, he timed it, he ensured that all of them had retired. He now published these books full of lies, lies, and lies. Right, so we are expecting him to bring forth evidence to come and substantiate this claim.
Thank you for that background information, especially looking at all of the controversies surrounding this particular issue. But I would like to understand what exactly constitutes defamation, because this is one of the major allegations that have been leveled against Dele Farotimi. And also, we know that you know, SAN, Afe Babalola had talked about the condition for release of Dele Farotimi, saying he has to rebut, you know, put out a rebuttal as against the claim that he made in the book. I'd like you to help us understand all of these issues and exactly what constitutes defamation of character under Nigeria's law.
Thank you so much. Defamation is any word said or written that brings a third party, that lowers the reputation of a third party before right-thinking people. If you look at the book, I don't know whether you have read it, unquestionably, that book is defamatory. Indeed, Mr. Farotimi himself in that book acknowledged the fact that it's defamatory because he said there was a particular page, he said he was awaiting the writs of the people he had mentioned for libel, that he would meet them in court for libel. What he did not know at the time he was making that assertion is that defamation is also a crime in some states in Nigeria, including Ekiti State. He didn't know that. He thought they would just sue him to court, then the matter will linger in court, civil litigation will linger in court for the next 10 years, then he'll be selling his book and then be making money, and then the matter will linger in court, he will be appealing until the whole thing, you know, fizzles out. But he never knew that, indeed, defamation is a crime in states like Ekiti. So that is exactly what has happened. Defamation, in other words, defamation is anything said or written that lowers the esteem of a citizen before right-thinking people.
Okay, you talked about legal bodies that Dele Farotimi could have petitioned 11 years ago if indeed, you know, he had evidence that the judgment was biased. So I'm wondering, you know, why the same wasn't pursued in this defamation case. Couldn't Afe Babalola have maybe reported to the Nigerian Bar Association? Did he have to go far with the police picking him up, you know, and then all the controversy that has arisen as a result of this? Is this something that the Ethics Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association could have handled?
Well, thank you so much. Well, in cases like this, there are multiple options for a person who has been defamed. Number one, you can pursue the criminal action. Secondly, you can go the civil way. And then thirdly, you can go to the professional body. And there's no law that prevents you from pursuing all. So what he has explored is legal, is within his legal rights, and it doesn't lie in the mouth of someone who had defamed another person to dictate to that person the course of action he should take. For as long as the course of action taken is legal, there's nothing anybody can do about it. What Chief Afe Babalola has done is without prejudice to the rights of Chief Afe Babalola or any other person that has been defamed to either pursue a civil action or go before the Legal Tribunal Committee. So these are processes. I believe that in days to come, events will unfold and then we'll have a full picture. But like I said, no law prevents anybody who has been deframed from pursuing all the options, all. You may not pursue all at the same time. You will take them one at a time. But no law prevents you from pursuing all.
I'd like you to also shed more light on the bill that was granted the activist on Monday in Ekiti, the 50 million naira and surety in like sum that was granted him on Monday in Ekiti.
Well, that is exclusively within the discretion of the court. I mean, the court has a discretion to impose terms and conditions for bail. That is exclusively within the discretion of the court, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So if they feel they cannot meet that bail, if for any reason they can't meet the condition, or they feel it's too onerous, it is their responsibility to file an application before that same court for variation of those conditions. So there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's exclusively within the discretion of the trial court to determine the conditions for the bail.
Okay, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Oluwole Aladedoye, thank you so much for joining us on.
Now, put your comment in the comment section. Let me know what you feel. And if you haven't watched or read that particular book that is turning the judicial system, or that is turning people, or the learned people, or the bar, the people in the bar, that is causing problem within them now, everybody proving this and that, go and watch it or read it. Get the book and read it as well. And let us conclude and know who is wrong and who is right. However, put your comment in the comment section. Don't forget to like the videos, share them, love them, and put on your notification button. God bless you as you do. See you next time. I'll Nirejo.